students, today this video is going to discuss PHP variables, namely how to name them, how to define them and assign a value to them, and how to output them to a web browser. So the first thing we're going to talk about is some of the rules with naming variables and what variables are. So variables are used to store data that you can reference or manipulate in your code. They're used to store pretty much any input and output to the user in some ways. Not all output, but definitely anything that you're collecting data from your website visitor, you're going to more than likely take that data and do something with it. And you're going to, like in most cases, we take that data and we double check that it matches the format that we want it to match. And then once we think everything looks good, then we go ahead and we insert a new record into our database table. So that information is stored. So think about people who join Facebook. They fill out a form with all their information on it. All that information is stored as variables. And then when they go to log in next week and they log in with their username and password, they come to a page and all that information that's displayed is displayed as variables that are taken from the data in the database and output to the screen. Okay, so how do we name variables? So naming variables is very simple. What we want to do in our PHP code is we want to use a $sign, and then some characters. The characters that you are allowed to use include capital letters A to Z, lowercase letters A to Z, all numbers 0 to 9, and an underscore. So an underscore, which looks like this, is the only valid special character that you can use in a PHP variable name. The other thing is you cannot start a PHP variable name with a number. So you see there's a red line or a red X, and you'll notice that my color coding has not turned to blue. So if I was to write out a valid variable name, it will stay all blue or whatever color that your IDE allows it to stay. That means good, that this is good. The other thing to note is that the variable names are case sensitive. So if I have age in lowercase letters and age with a capital letter, these are seen as two different variables to PHP. Okay, so it's very important that when you name your variables that you have some sort of common style that you're going to use. And let's talk about something like, let's say you're storing a variable called first name. Okay, you're creating a variable called first name. You can create it all lowercase. You can create it with an underscore, or you can create it in camel case, which is all lowercase, and then when you get to the second word, you start it with a capital letter. Okay, so these are all very valid ways of naming your variables, but the point is to pick one that you like and to stick with it in all of your code. Because what happens is you're going to be referencing this variable frequently in your code, and you're not going to want to take the time to stop and go back and read, what was it? What was the name of my variable again? Did I use an underscore? Did I use a capital letter? Did I not use anything in between there? So save yourself some time and hassle, because if you do this differently depending on the variable, you're going to get PHP errors because you put the name in, you put the variable in wrong, and it can't find that variable. Okay, so this is wisdom here that I'm sharing with you. Okay, so the other thing is they cannot contain any spaces. So there's no such thing as a variable called first name. Okay, so get out of the habit of putting spaces in things. They can't contain periods. So first dot name is not a valid variable. Okay, so now that we know how to name variables, let's talk about how to actually store information to these variables. Okay, because all I've done here is create some variables. There's nothing exciting underneath any of these things. So let's talk about numbers first. Let's say I need to define a variable called text rate. Okay, so let's say my tax rate, I want to store a decimal number here. Let's say I want to store 0.095, okay? So this is a valid way of creating a variable called tax rate and assigning it a value, okay? Best practice to assign a value to your variable so that when you reference this variable in your code, that you will have a value already attached to it. Now note a couple things. One, I didn't enclose my number in any quotes or quotations. And that's because with numbers, you don't put them inside anything, because PHP now knows that this variable is a number. You can also do something like that. So num2. Okay, so we can do these types of things. All these are different examples of numbers that have been stored. Now, what if we want to store a first name like we've been talking about? So let's say we want to store a first name. We're going to use the equal sign, and the equal sign is known as the assignment operator. So anytime you say something equals something, it is the system, PHP, will assign that variable that particular value. So whenever I reference this variable, instead of showing you the variable, in its place will be the data that's inside of the variable. Okay, so let's say I'm collecting information and I'm going to use a generic last name here. Let's say I'm going to do address. Okay, since these are all strings, I'm putting them in quotation marks. Having a hard time with my keyboard. Okay, so I have saved all of this information to different variables. Now that I have them, what do I go ahead and do with them? So there's two ways to output variables to the screen. One of them is called print, and we can just do something like print num2. Okay, so let's see what happens. Let me go ahead and save this. And I've already got my page open, but let me refresh it here. Okay, so num2 is the value, should be 15, and we were doing print num2, and so we have a 15. So there you go. That's some PHP variable magic working on here. So let's say I wanted to print number 1. Okay, so let's save that. And let me refresh my page. Okay, now it says 1510. Why does it say 1510? Let's go back and look at our code. So number 1 is 10 and number 2 is 15. So what it's doing, you'll notice, is it's just printing them right next to each other because we haven't specified anything else. So we can use something called a concatenation, and we can do num2, and then we can put a concatenation in here, and we can put a space. So the period is a concatenation symbol. What that's going to do is it's going to combine everything into one line. Okay, so what it's going to do, it's going to print number 2, 15, and then this is basically acting as glue. Glue this with the space, and then here's some more glue, and then put number 1. So this should say 15 space and a 10. Let's see if that works. Well, there's our 15 space and a 10, and there's our original one. So let me, there's a couple other ways we can get rid of that one. We can also include a HTML tag in our print statement. Because remember, we're sitting inside our PHP block. So all that we are doing right now is PHP. So we can't just go write HTML in here. We have to actually send the HTML the same way that we're sending all of our other code PHP to the screen. Okay, so let's see what that looks like after we've saved it. So now I've got a 15, a 10. Oh, I still have my 15 and 10, so let me copy this and do this one more time. See all the formatting that you need to consider now. All right, so here's my first value, here's my second value. I've got line breaks in between these, and then here's my concatenation, 15 space 10. Okay, so you can do the same thing. Like, let's say we want to output this information for our user. We can use print, but we can also use echo. So it's really, they're very similar. It's really which one you prefer. Again, kind of stick with one for best practices here. So let's say I want to echo my first name. Now, can I just echo my second name, my last name right next to it? No, because I need to have that concatenation again. So I'm going to concatenate, do my spaces, concatenate, and put last name. I mean, I guess I could, if I really wanted to waste all the space, I could do echo first name and then echo space and then echo last name on 3 different lines, but that seems like a lot more typing. Okay, so then let's say I want to have a line break. I'll put my BR statement in there. And then I'm going to do my next thing, which is the address. So I'm going to echo the address with the concatenation. Oh, actually, nope. I'm just going to echo the address, and then I'm going to echo a line break. I could always add these line breaks in as a concatenation as well. And then I'm going to echo city. And it might just be, you know, you might just type these all out and then go back and put your concatenation in, if that makes a little more sense. Just be careful that you use the glue on each one. Okay, so we're doing city. Actually, I want it to say city, comma, and then a space, state, and then a space, and then zip code. Okay, so let's see what all this looks like. I'll put my semicolon. Don't have any red X's. And let's see if that looks like a presentable address here. Oh, it looks good, except I need to have my little break right here. Let me put my break in between those. Okay, now let's say I wanted to pass some information that says like hello and then first and last name. Okay, so let me put another break in here. So let's say I'm going to say hello, and then I'm going to put a comma and a space, and then I want to include the variable. So I want to say hello, Dina. So I've got my hello, and then I'm going to use first name, and then let's say I want to have an exclamation point, feeling friendly. All right, let's see if that works. So basically, here's the text that we're sending to the screen, and then we're sending our variable, and then we're sending an exclamation point. Let me save that. Okay, so it says, hello, Dina. That's exactly what we wanted. Now, let's say we want to put some HTML around this and make this be a heading. I want it to be an H1. So I'm just going to go ahead and put that H1 right in here. And I'm going to close this H1. And because I already have something I'm sending to the screen, I can send the HTML with it. Okay, so this is where it kind of hurts your eyes a bit, because this isn't as easy for us to read because of the concatenation and everything. So this is why you need to know your HTML tags and how they belong in the code so that you can put them into your PHP without any problem. All right, so here we go. We've got our H1. Hello, Dina. I'm feeling pretty good about this right now. And this is how you declare variables, some of the naming conventions, how you print those variables out to the screen, and how you combine them using the concatenation symbol. Okay, so go practice, have fun, and play with a bunch of different variables. Thanks. Bye.